Something is happening inside you that you cannot quite explain to anyone. Not for a lack of words, but because what you are feeling does not fit into any category you have ever been taught. It is not exactly sadness. It is not exactly anxiety. It is a weight that appears on an ordinary afternoon while you are washing the dishes. It is an emotion that rises without invitation while you are driving. It is a restlessness that increases precisely when everything around you seems to be relatively well. And the question that accompanies you is not just, "What is wrong with me?" as though you have asked that one too. The deeper question, the one you have not verbalized to anyone yet, is another. Is something actually happening? And if so, what? Today I'm going to tell you something that will reorganize everything you have been experiencing. Not to spiritualize what may need medical attention, not to give you an explanation that distances you from taking care of yourself, but to give you a structure large enough to contain at the same time the body and the spirit, because they were never meant to operate separately, and this separation is exactly what has left you without the language to understand what is passing through you. Stay with me until the end, because what you are going to receive here is not consolation, it is orientation, and you will need it for the phase that has already begun. Let us begin with what you feel. Not with what you think you should feel, but with what is in fact happening. You have been feeling a fatigue that does not respond to rest the way it should. It is not the tiredness of someone who worked too hard on a specific day. It is an exhaustion of layers, as if something in you were spending energy on a process you cannot consciously locate. You sleep and wake up still burdened. You rest over the weekend, and by Monday, the feeling of weight has already returned. At the same time, your emotional landscape has become unpredictable territory. A banal song pierces you with disproportionate intensity. A scene in a movie evokes a crying spell you did not expect. A conversation that would previously have been neutral now drains you in a way you cannot explain.
Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life, a guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming, with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10,000 readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who were tired of living in the fog, ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.
And most disconcerting, you cannot track where this increased sensitivity comes from because it has no clear object. It is diffuse. It is about everything and nothing at the same time. And there is a change in your tolerance for which you may have begun to blame yourself. Situations that you previously navigated without difficulty now exhaust you in minutes. People you genuinely love begin to weigh on you in a way that generates guilt because you pull away, not because you want to, but because it seems you simply have no reserves for certain types of interaction. And this guilt accumulates because you were taught that love is limitless capacity, that a good son, a good spouse, a good friend never feels they need distance. If any of these elements resonate with what you are living, I must ask you something before continuing. If you have not yet consulted a doctor about these symptoms, do so. Persistent fatigue, intense emotional fluctuations, changes in sleep and appetite. These are signs that deserve clinical evaluation, not because what you are experiencing is only physical, but because caring for the body is the first act of responsibility over the temple you inhabit. Serious spirituality has never replaced responsible medicine, it complements it. And it is exactly here that the revelation begins. If you are not yet subscribed to this channel, subscribe now. Because what we are going to build together throughout these videos is an integrated worldview, where faith is not naivety, where spirituality is not an escape from reality, and where taking care of oneself is a deeply sacred act. There is a word in the Hebrew of the Old Testament that most of our Bibles translate as soul. And this translation, while not wrong, loses something essential that will change the way you understand what is happening in you. The word is neshama, in Hebrew neshama. It appears for the first time in the 2nd chapter of Genesis, verse 7. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. The word translated as breath of life is neshama. Hebrew lexicographers describe neshama as the divine breath that not only animates the body, but constitutes the point of intersection between the human and the eternal. It is not the spirit abstracted from the body. It is the spirit that inhabits the body, that penetrates it, that transforms it from within. The neshama is the sign that you are not a spirit trapped inside a temporary physical carcass. You are a living unity where the material and the eternal meet inseparably. This changes everything about how you read your physical experiences. If your constitution is fundamentally one, if the breath of God inhabits every muscle fiber, every emotional response, every fluctuation of your nervous system, then the idea that spiritual transformation happens only in the mind or only in the spirit is an illusion. All genuine transformation is embodied. It mobilizes the body, it moves the emotions, it alters perception, not because the body is falling ill, but because the body is the territory where transformation becomes concrete and verifiable. Researchers at Unicamp, in published studies on psychoneuroimmunology, the field that studies the relationship between psychological states, the nervous system, and the immune system, have demonstrated that processes of deep psychological restructuring produce measurable effects on the body's biochemistry. Changes in cortisol patterns, in the activity of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and in the way the autonomic nervous system regulates the response to the environment. In simple terms, when something significant changes inside a person, the body registers that change, not necessarily as pathology, but as an adaptive response to a new internal configuration. And the Max Planck Institute for Human Cognitive and Brain Sciences in Germany has published research showing that periods of intense reorganization of beliefs and values, what researchers call the narrative restructuring of the self, are associated with transitory phases of greater emotional sensitivity, cognitive fatigue, and an increased need for rest. The body is not alien to the process of becoming who you were called to be. It participates actively. It charges the metabolic cost of transformation. What you have been feeling is not weakness. It is participation. But now I must go beyond science, because science describes the phenomenon, and what spirituality reveals is the purpose behind it. There is a moment in the life of the prophet Elijah that most people who know his story associate with the peak of his ministry, the confrontation on Mount Carmel. One man against 450 prophets of Baal, the fire that descended from heaven, the crowd that fell on their faces. Elijah at that moment operates with a spiritual authority that seems unshakable. And then a single message from Queen Jezebel, a death threat, completely undoes that man who had just challenged an entire system. In the first book of Kings, chapter 19, the scene that follows is among the most humanly honest in the entire Bible. Elijah walks through the desert. He sits under a broom tree, and he asks to die. "It is enough, Lord. Take my life." The man who had just moved fire from heaven is now lying in the desert, exhausted to the point of wanting to die, unable to take another step. And what does God do? He does not rebuke him. He does not deliver a motivational speech. He does not confront him with the inconsistency between what he had just done and how he is now feeling. What happens is silent and completely embodied. An angel touches Elijah and says, "Arise and eat." There is a cake baked on hot stones. There is a jar of water. "Arise and eat, for the journey is too great for thee." The journey is too great. Elijah's problem was not spiritual at that moment. It was physical, it was real exhaustion, and God's response was as concrete as the problem. Food, water, rest. Twice. Before any revelation. before any instruction about the next step, before what would come after. Because what came after was something Elijah needed all his reserves to receive. After 40 days walking through the restored desert, Elijah reaches Mount Horeb and encounters what biblical commentators identify as one of the most singular theophanic experiences of the Old Testament: the wind that rends the mountains, the earthquake, the fire, and after all that, a voice. In Hebrew, Kol Demama Daka, Kavol Demama Daka. The closest translation is a voice of delicate silence, literally, the sound of thin silence. Experts in biblical Hebrew describe Daka as extremely thin, like something reduced to its most subtle and essential form, and Demama as stillness, not the absence of sound, but the presence of a peace that has substance. The voice of God that Elijah needed to hear for the next phase of his journey did not come in the spectacle. It did not come in the visual power that the prophets of Baal would have produced. It came in the place where the agitated mind simply cannot reach. This is what you are being prepared to hear. Not in the noise, in the silence that you only reach when you stop fighting against tiredness and begin to treat it as the legitimate sign that it is. If this is reaching where it needs to reach, like this video now, every like helps this content reach more people who are exactly where you are today. There is a psalm that David wrote, the 139th, which contains one of the most radical statements about the human body that the Hebrew scriptures recorded. We translate it as, "I praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made." But the original Hebrew has a force that goes beyond. The word used for fearfully is yar, in Hebrew yar-a, which in other contexts is translated as awesome in the sense that it provokes reverence. The same adjective used to describe the majesty of God is here applied to the architecture of the human body. David is not making abstract poetry. He is recognizing that the body he inhabits is in itself a work of sacred engineering, that the complexity with which he was woven in his mother's womb reveals something about the intelligence of the Creator that no other work in creation evidences in the same way. And it is from this vision that your fatigue, your increased sensitivity, your need for rest gain a completely different meaning. They are not signs that you are failing. They are signs that the system God made in such a complex way is responding with precision to a real process. But there is a dimension of this process that few spiritual leaders address with the honesty the subject deserves, and which needs to be said clearly here. A survey by the IBGE published in the Health Supplement of the National Household Sample Survey revealed that Brazilian adults in the 35 to 50 age range report the highest rates of somatic complaints without an established clinical diagnosis, pains of diffuse origin, persistent fatigue, sleep alterations, than any other age group. And most revealing, this range is also the one with the lowest rate of seeking psychological care, even though it is the most affected by symptoms that the psychology of somatic stress recognizes as bodily expressions of unprocessed emotional burdens. In other words, Brazilians over 35 carry emotionally in their bodies what they were unable or not authorized to process psychologically. Our culture has created a specific pattern of masculinity and adult responsibility that equates not feeling with being strong and feeling with being weak. And the result, decades later, is a body that speaks in pains and tiredness, the language of a psychology that had no space for expression. PAO CSP, in research on somatic health and emotional processing in adults, identified a pattern that researchers termed functional dissociation, the separation between what the individual feels emotionally and what they allow to be recognized as a legitimate feeling. People with high functional dissociation frequently present non-specific physical symptoms, not because there is no real cause, but because the channel of emotional processing was systematically blocked over the years, and the body found other avenues of expression. This does not invalidate the spiritual dimension of what you are living. It expands the map you need to navigate through it, because here is what both fields, science and theology, point toward in the same direction. You will not be able to fully inhabit the next phase of your journey while you are still carrying in your body what the past left unprocessed. The transformation you are perceiving cannot be finalized while the emotional burdens manifesting as tension, fatigue, and excessive sensitivity are not recognized, named, and released. And release in this context is not forgetting, it is integrating. The Book of Job contains something rarely explored in sermons or spiritual content, the physical extent of Job's suffering. It is not just that he lost children, wealth, and reputation. His skin was covered with painful ulcers. He scraped his flesh with a potsherd. He barely slept. His body had become a battlefield he did not choose. And what Job's friends do, which is exactly what our religious culture often reproduces, is try to transform Job's physical experience into evidence of spiritual failure. If you are suffering like this, it is because something is wrong with you. It is punishment. It is consequence. It is a lack of faith. But at the end of the book, God speaks, and he does not address Job's friends to validate the theology they built to explain another's suffering. God addresses Job, and what he reveals is not the cause of the suffering, but the vastness of an intelligence that operates in dimensions that the human mind simply does not reach. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? God's response to Job's suffering is not an explanation. It is an expansion of perspective, and that is what you need today regarding what you are carrying in your body. Not an explanation that reduces what you are living to a simple spiritual formula. Not a narrative that tells you to ignore what your physical system is communicating in the name of a disembodied transcendence, but an expansion of perspective large enough to contain the complexity of who you really are, a being of neshama, of divine breath, inhabiting a body that was fearfully made and that is now passing through something that is at once physical, emotional, and spiritual. Because these dimensions were never separate. In the comments below, write the word whole. It is a declaration, an affirmation that you will no longer accept the fragmentation that culture has imposed on you, the fragmentation that separates the body from the soul, emotion from spirituality, medical care from faith. You are whole, and you will learn to live as such. Now, what you do with all this in a practical way. The first thing is to recognize that your increased sensitivity is not a character weakness. It is high-quality information about your internal and external environment. Researchers at Harvard Medical School in the field of mind-body medicine have identified that people with high sensitivity to emotional processing have more refined access to interoceptive signals, the signals the body generates about its own internal state. This capacity, when not managed, produces overload. When managed consciously, it produces discernment. The problem is not that you feel too much. The problem is that you were never taught to use what you feel as information, instead of letting it use you as territory. The second thing, the reduction of your tolerance for certain situations and certain types of interaction is neither ingratitude nor spiritual intolerance. It is a form of discernment that is becoming clearer. When something begins to drain your energy in a way it did not before, that is data about the alignment between that situation and who you are becoming. It is not to be used as a justification for abandoning responsibilities or difficult relationships without criteria, but it is to be taken seriously as information, not dismissed as exaggeration. The third thing, the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 uses a Greek expression that is rarely explored in its full implications. In speaking about the resurrection, about what we are now and what we will be, he uses the term soma pneumatikon, spiritual body. Not spirit without a body, not a body without a spirit, a body that has been completely interpenetrated by the spirit, where the two dimensions operate in perfect unity. This is the destination of your transformation, not a spiritualism that abandons the physical in the name of the transcendent, but a growing wholeness where what you feel in the body, what you process emotionally, and what you discern spiritually begin to operate as a unified system. A system where fatigue informs you about what needs to be restored, where emotion informs you about what needs to be processed, where restlessness informs you about what needs to be moved, and where peace, that Koldamama Daka, that thin silence that Elijah found on Mount Horeb, informs you about what is aligned with the purpose for which you were breathed into existence. You have been living through a phase that no one around you can completely name. Not the doctors, because the exams come back within normal limits. Not the friends, because they see from the outside. Not the spiritual leaders you may have already consulted, because many of them still work with a fragmented vision, where the body and the spirit are treated in separate departments. But here is what this video has arrived to tell you, with all the clarity the situation deserves. What you are living is not a collapse. It is not weakness. It is not a sign that you are going in the wrong direction. It is the process of integration of a being that was forced by life and by culture to live fragmented for too long. A being that learned to anesthetize bodily pain to function, to suppress emotion to be accepted, to ignore intuition to appear rational. And who now, faced with a summons they did not ask for but that came anyway, is being called back to wholeness. Elijah returned from Mount Horeb with a new mission, an anointed successor and a renewed clarity. But that was only possible after the food on the stones, after the water, after the sleep, after the angel who touched his shoulder with a compassion that was not at all abstract. It had temperature, it had presence, it had substance. Job, after everything, received not an explanation, but a restoration. And what was restored was not just the external. The text says that the Lord turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends. Job's restoration began in an act of generosity that came from someone who was still in the midst of their own pain. Not after the pain passed. In the middle of it. David, who wrote about his body being fearfully formed, was not a man without physical suffering. He was a man who learned to treat every dimension of his existence, joy, fear, tiredness, ecstasy, disillusionment, as legitimate material for dialogue with God. The Psalms are, in large part, the documentation of a man who did not separate his spirituality from his humanity. And that is what you are being called to do. Not to reach a spirituality that lives above the body, but to inhabit, with awareness and with care, the whole being that you are, consulting doctors when physical symptoms need evaluation, seeking psychological support when the emotional burden exceeds what you can process alone, and at the same time, cultivating the internal space of silence where the Kol Demama Daka, the voice of thin silence, still speaks with the same precision with which it spoke to Elijah in the desert. You are not breaking, you are being integrated. And this is one of the most demanding experiences a human being can go through, precisely because it is also one of the most transformative. Activate the notification bell now. In the next video on this channel, we will go directly into how this wholeness begins to manifest in your relationships and in your practical decisions, and why the changes you are already perceiving in these areas are not accidental. You will not want to miss it. Before I leave you, one last thing. There is a very well-intentioned lie that circulates in certain spiritual environments. The lie that those who have faith do not get sick, do not get tired, do not fluctuate emotionally, do not need external help, that everything you feel in the body can be resolved with more prayer, more fasting, more reading of the scriptures, that turning to a doctor or a psychologist is a sign of insufficient faith. This lie has been too expensive for many people. It cost late diagnoses, it cost untreated disorders, it cost years of suffering that could have been shortened with responsible care. God is not the architect of abandonment. He is the God who sent an angel to cook bread and bring water to an exhausted prophet before asking anything of him. He is the God whose breath, neshama, is embedded in the very architecture of your body. He is the God who formed David fearfully and who forms you in the same way. Caring for this body is not a lack of faith. It is obedience to the Creator who made it as the dwelling place of his breath. If this video reached where it needed to, share it with someone who is carrying in their body something they have not yet been able to name. You do not need to explain. You do not need to contextualize. Just send it, because sometimes the message that sets free the person you love arrives through your hands at a moment when you do not even know exactly what they are going through. See you in the next video. And when you get there, what you receive today will make even more sense.
Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life, a guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming. with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10,000 readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you, who were tired of living in the fog, ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.